Good morning, good sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you, my friend?
I am fired up, man. It's Friday. The schedule was released, and usually when that happens, I feel like that is. I know the league year starts in March, but once you get the actual schedule, you know when and where and how the times. To me, it's go time, baby.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously you have the spree of free agency, and you have the NFL draft, which is another offseason Super Bowl. And I'm not going to equate this to that, but as far as starting points are concerned, I think this is the official starting point for me in my mind of any coming season. Because, like you said, not only do you know the opponents, because we know the opponents and the where, so we know the who and the where effective, in early February, late January, but now we know when, which means we know how things are going to line up for the Cowboys, what's going to
Right.
be the biggest challenge, what's the biggest stretch, when's the bye week. So you really get to start dissecting where they need to dominate. Obviously, they need to dominate the whole season, but realistically, what are the tough stretches, the stretches where maybe not so tough. So, yeah, this is where it really starts.
Let's put a pin in that one real quick because I definitely want to dive into the science of the schedule because you broke it down. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a schedule breakdown like that. So kudos to you, sir. And I promise y'all, I'm not lying. I'll put the link in the description for y'all to go watch or read later. But it is an extremely detailed one, and we kind of want to get Pat's general thoughts on it in general. So if that's okay with you, let's put a pin in that real quick, Pat.
Yeah, man, hit pause on it. Let's do it. Let's go.
So the last couple days, or was it a few days ago, you guys were able to speak to all of the assistants. By the way, I absolutely love when y'all do that in the offseason because we don't get a chance to hear from them. And we got a chance to hear from everybody. There was a guy I didn't even know he was on the team. And seriously, I don't even remember his name, but he seems new. I don't know. Maybe he's been here forever. Uh, but you guys were able to talk to assistants. You got some updates on some key players or a key player and a promising player in Trayvon Diggs and John Stevens Jr. Can you update Cowboys Nation on that in case they missed it?
Yeah, 100%. And if they did miss it, that means they're not following me on Twitter at Voice of the Star. And if you're not, then I
What are
mean,
you doing?
what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? That's like not watching X-Men '97. Like, get your life together. Um, so I was curious about the injuries when we were talking to the assistant coaches, and first and foremost, I walked up to Al Harris and I was asking him, how things are going in the assistant coaching role. But then I asked him about the progress of Trayvon Diggs. Now, specifically, I asked him if Diggs was on track and on schedule to be on the field to start training camp in late July. And he stopped short of saying that, which respectfully I get that because that is the job of Britt Brown and his training staff. But he was very optimistic, Al Harris was. He said that Trayvon Diggs is on schedule. He looks good, and that he doesn't see that there would be, barring any setbacks, he doesn't believe there'd be a reason that Trayvon is not on the field at some point in training camp, maybe as early as the start of training camp. We'll see how that goes. But Al was very, very excited about the progress of Trayvon Diggs. So that's fantastic news for the Dallas Cowboys to get him back on the field and get him back with a version of Deron Bland that is not only now a breakout player, but is one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL and a record-setting historic defensive back. So good news on Trayvon Diggs' front. I spoke to Lunda Wells, Cowboys tight ends coach, asked him about John Stevens Jr., the progress there. And he actually said that John Stevens is, quote-unquote, ahead of schedule. Also confirmed what my eyes were telling me that John Stevens was passing the eye test. As I saw him walk around the facility, he does, in fact, look bigger, no diddy, than he did last training camp before he got injured. Now, keep in mind, for those like yourself who were at training camp, John Stevens was more lanky, slender.
Yes.
He was tall, but he was more lanky, slender, didn't really have the muscle mass. He has muscle mass now, which is impressive on his build. So as long as he maintains the athleticism that made him a training camp favorite and made him all but a lock to make the final roster before he tore his ACL, putting on that mass makes him that much more dangerous. So those are the updates on both John Stevens, which is promising because he's going to make some serious waves on that tight end depth chart. And then you have to wonder, how does that fit in with, some of the rookies like Brevin, undrafted guy, Peyton Hendershot? You're going into, year three. Yeah. So what are you going to do there? Because had a special teams flash here or there last year, but was on IR for the most part. They got Schoonmaker, so tight end battle is going to be real interesting.
I said this the other day. If you can make an impression on Lunda Wells, that does something for you in regards to making his team, because from what I was told, Lunda Wells absolutely loved John Stevens last year, and Hendo was in trouble, and then injuries piled up, and the rest is history. But like you mentioned, John Stevens Jr., Brevin span forward. I think this is a guy that has a real legit path to this team. And I look at guys like Hendershot, like you said. I know the second round pick is going to be here, Luke Schoonmaker, so that's not an issue. But man, this is going to be a very competitive room, and whoever can get the attention of Lunda Wells, I think, has a leg up to not just making the team, but potentially being a factor, even if it's at tight end 3.
I mean, absolutely. When you think about number one, think about how young the room is, but how also talented the room is. So that's just such a benefit for the Cowboys, because you're led by Jake Ferguson going into only his 3rd year, and he's already one of the best tight ends in the league and has a chance this season to take another step and be one of the top 3 tight ends in the league, right up there with Kelsey and Kittle. And then behind him, you got to figure out what you got with Schoonmaker. But even if Schoonmaker is slow to get out of the gates this year, keep in mind he battled plantar fasciitis for all the training camp, so that slowed his progress. So we'll see what he is now. John Stevens, unfortunately, tore his ACL, but just an uber talented young man. So then when you got him and you got like a guy like Span Forward, it's just so much young talent that the Cowboys love here, no Drizzy. And they feel like they can take the next step without having to have a veteran, even like Sean McEwen around, who reportedly will join the Lions. But that relationship has long ended because the Cowboys believe another young guy, Princeton Fant, has essentially and effectively replaced the role of Sean McEwen. So a lot of youth here, but a lot of talent as well. A lot of question marks on someone like Schoonmaker, obviously. We'll see what John Stevens can do. But what we do know is that John Stevens has the ability to play against NFL caliber defenses, because he was playing against one of the best in the league as far as practices go in training camp, and he was doing his thing. So very promising to hear that he's on schedule, or ahead of schedule, actually.
All right, let's pull that pin out of the schedule and let's take this microscope and get into the science of the Cowboys 2024 schedule, where I dubbed it yesterday the perfect schedule. Now, I can be a little bit selfish here because I don't like
celebrating.
I don't like primetime games, so I love it that we don't got a bunch of them to start and they're spread it out. But I loved it, man. But can you break it down from what you from your eyes, your view, and maybe just give us a little generalization of your article?
Yeah. So first of all, folks, make sure you go to DallasCowboys.com and or go to my Twitter at Voice of the Star. Make sure you check out there where you can find the link for the whole write-up. It is a heavy one, so this is not microwave. I don't microwave for you guys. That's not what science does. So it is a 7,000-worder. You're going to have to, carve some time, put the kids to bed, finish doing what you need to do with your significant other, wink, wink, and then get to reading this. So my notable schedule quirks, first of all, there's 9 home games. That's one more home game than last year. Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers, embarrassment notwithstanding, the Cowboys were and have been the most dominant home team in the entire NFL over the past several seasons. Again, the Green Bay Packers game notwithstanding. So they got one more home game. That works in their favor as far as regular season goes. 6 primetime games. I thought people were tired of watching the Cowboys still. If
Never.
That's the case, why 6 primetime? Okay, we're going to blow right past that because that tracks for the Cowboys, 6 primetime games. They have a back-to-back primetime in Week 4 and Week 5. They have no 3-game homestand. Now, last year, it was key to remember, they were brutalized by the first portion of their schedule before the bye week because they had so many road games. But on the back end, it allowed them at least one 3-game homestand. If you look at how the schedule breaks down this time around, it's not heavy in travel up front or in the back. It's a much more balanced schedule, which I absolutely love. Number one, as someone who feels like the Cowboys needed that balance, and it didn't work in their favor last year, so it does now. But also, as someone who travels with the team, balance is key. I like being home sometimes. No 3-game homestand, but no 3-game road trip. That's also good as well. They only have one coast-to-coast travel, and that'll be Week 8, Week 9. So they go to San Francisco, week 8. Then, of course, they come back, pit stop to do practices before week 9, where they go to
Atlanta.
The Falcons. Yeah, they go to the Falcons. So that's the only coast-to-coast travel. Mini bye week post-Thanksgiving. Now, that's because for the first time in a while, they don't have back-to-back Thursdays. So Thanksgiving is a Thursday, and then typically in recent history, they'll have the following Thursday, but not this year. They have Thanksgiving, which is against the Giants. They're hosting at AT&T Stadium. And then they have almost 13 days before they play their next game, which is phenomenal. So those are some of the notable quirks. 6 of the 9 final games are home games. That is so heavily in favor of the Cowboys, folks. Go back and look at what that December schedule, that late November through December schedule looked like last year, and now look at what it looks like this year. They have 6 of those final 9 games at home, when you know that's going to be the stretch that determines playoff seeding, division crown, things of that nature. That's so critical. So those are my main schedule quirks that I picked out before I started breaking down each opponent.
You know what else is fantastic about this? I mean, there's so many things, but you get the AFC North road teams at the beginning of the season. So theoretically, when you look at the back end of the schedule, last year they had to go travel to Buffalo, deal with that weather. You're going to have to travel to Philly in week 17. And let's be honest, man, that's not really, to me, bad weather in Philadelphia. Now, Pittsburgh, with the lake effect snow, Cleveland, Buffalo, that's a different story. So you even avoid that. So if you can somehow get the 1 or 2 seed, which I know a lot of Cowboy fans are like, are you crazy? Then you won't have to play a cold game probably throughout the entirety of the season.
Yeah, you're not dealing with a situation like having to go to Buffalo, which turned out to not be so much the weather that cost them the game as much as it was the lack of run defense from James Cook. But still, when you look at this late November going into December schedule, okay, you're going to deal with the New York Giants. That's on Thanksgiving, but that's home at AT&T Stadium. The Bengals, guess what? You're not going to Cincinnati on December 9th. That's home at AT&T Stadium. December 15th, okay, that's a winter game, but it's in Charlotte. Right now, I know that the Carolina weather can be a bit moody, right, from my time out there. Shout out to swingy, Queen City. But for the most part, the prediction is going to be that it's not going to be, 2 feet of snow, and it's not going to be, 15 below. So that should be favorable for the Cowboys playing at Bank of America Stadium. You come back on December 22nd at home, you got the Bucs. And then, like you said, week 17, you got the Philadelphia Eagles. But even if that's a cold weather game, if you look at the stretch of games to end the season, if that's all you have to worry about, and in the familiar confines of the link, because it's not like you're playing an AFC team like the Buffalo Bills, whom you only play like once every 4 years, and it might be inclement weather or ice cold. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. You go there once a year, at least once a year, right? You're comfortable there. You almost won last year there, right? If not for a step out of bounds here and a knee down there, you know what I mean? So I really love how this lines up for the Cowboys.
All right, Pat, this is what we're going to do here. We got a couple mailbag questions I want you to help answer for the nation, if you don't mind, sir.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
It's time.
It is time for
the most electrifying move. All right, scumbag, pay attention. It's time for mail call.
You've got mail.
The most electrifying mailbag segment in all of sports entertainment. Pat, let's do it. The first question right out the gate comes from Try It Out on Twitter, and he says, what team will we take too lightly and not show up against? Happens every year, at least once a year. So essentially he's saying, where's the trap game at, Pat?
First of all, can we just all take a moment to acknowledge the greatness of Steele and his production abilities? Like, bro, you are something different, right? You are something different.
Appreciate you, brother.
What I would like to believe I am to writing, you are most certainly to production.
That means a lot, because you are
nasty work, bro. Nasty work, bro. All right, so the trap game, the infamous trap game. There's always one, right?
Yeah.
It's Sunday, December 15th against the Carolina Panthers.
Oh.
That's the trap game. Here's why it's the trap game. I know some people are saying Tampa Bay, and that's possible. But if the Bucs upset the Cowboys, it would not be nearly as much of a world shocker as if the Carolina Panthers did. The Carolina Panthers were 2-15 last season. The Cowboys went there last season, and even though they played with their food for 3 quarters, they ended up blowing them out in the end. They dropped 16 points, and 16-0 was the score in the fourth quarter to finish walking those boys like dogs. And I feel like the Cowboys are going to go into Bank of America Stadium, and it's a noon game. We know the Cowboys don't normally get out to fast starts at noon. That is just historically true with this version of the Cowboys. So it's a noon game. That's not necessarily working into the favor of the Cowboys. It's an away game. The Cowboys' away record last year, yes, they beat the Panthers, but they really struggled on the road last year, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then when you look at when this game is played, as far as who is played after. So look at the schedule. They have – this is something, man. Coming out of the bye, you got to go to the 49ers. You got to go to the Falcons. That's a coast-to-coast. We don't know what the Falcons look like. Might be a bigger challenge than some think. Bijan Robinson, London Drake. Who am I forgetting? Kyle Pitts.
Algier.
Right?
So for me, let's stay right there real quick. That's my trap game. I mean, that's the take lightly game or whatever you want to call it, right? Because you're going to play the 49ers. So win or lose, you're either going to be extremely high off that game if you win, or if you lose, I feel like there's going to be so much pressure. And I'm not saying they'll overlook the Falcons, but let's be honest. In that tough stretch from week 6 to week 11, it's the Falcons who look like the team that you should get the dub, right? And we know the Cowboys, when they have to win, something stupid happens. So I look at the Falcons as a potential team. With Kirk Cousins, I think they're a better team. The new coaching staff over there, that could be the game right there.
Could be, but here's my logic and my science behind that. The reason I don't think the Falcons is a trap game, I think it's a game that they will get up for. Because if you win against the 49ers, you know that you can't allow that to permeate because you have to go to Atlanta and you have to take that, right? And you're going against a Falcons defense that is still very much unsettled and you can take advantage of. Now, if you lose against the 49ers, then you're looking to beat the hell out of the Falcons, right? That's just period. If you lose, particularly if you get bullied again by the 49ers, you're going to take
And they don't lose 2 games in a row often. They did it once last year, but
there's that as well. Correct. So that's my logic on feeling like the Falcons are not the trap game. But in all of these, 49ers, Falcons, Eagles, Texans, right? Commanders, iffy, but it's a division game, and there's added familiarity because Dan Quinn knows Mike McCarthy's offense, just like McCarthy knows Dan Quinn's defense. So we'll see. That can go either way at the moment. You got the Giants, another division game, Bengals. And then let's skip over the Panthers for a second. Then you got the Buccaneers. Maybe after you have all of those tough games and some extremely tough games in that mix, maybe you're tired and you think that you can sleepwalk against the Panthers, who were 2-15 and put up a little bit of a fight last year, but not enough that kept you from blowing them out of their own stadium. Not enough the fact that last year you accidentally disrespected them by at kickoff. You had a Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson Ring of Honor announcement. Right? So the Panthers are remembering all of that. Trust me when I tell you, because I have friends who covered that beat, and they were telling me that the Panthers really want some revenge, not just for the loss last year, but they feel disrespected by the fact that there was a press conference going on when the game was being kicked off. So you have those intangibles as well. I feel like if you sleepwalk against the Panthers in a noon game, and those noon games are typically when Cowboys get off the slow starts, then you're going to find yourself in more than a dogfight against Bryce Young, and they've got him at least one new offensive weapon in the first round. So, the Buccaneers, that's a playoff team, right? The Bengals, playoff team. Giants, but it's a divisional rival. Commanders, divisional rival. Texans, playoff team that is explosive on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
The Eagles, that's your other front runner to try to take the division crown from you. Falcons, that's going to be a battle. 49ers, okay, now you come down that list, and guess what? What sticks out like a sore thumb is if you're thinking as a fan looking at that, oh, well, at least we got the Panthers, then that's your trap game.
That makes sense. For the definition of trap game, I see what you're saying. Definitely late in that season. This is the stretch to me. I think week 12 to 18 is the Cowboys' best stretch. And obviously the weakest opponent right there is the Carolina Panthers. So it's very possible. You don't want to overlook that.
Add this to it. Let's say you're coming off of the Bengals, which ends a stretch of very tough games, including division games. And then after the Panthers, maybe you accidentally get a little bit ahead of your skis and you start saying, okay, well, we got the Bucks following the Panthers, and then we got the Week 17 against the Eagles, which, depending on how things shook out in the first Eagles matchup, this game is probably going to determine the division in Week 17. Maybe you're looking forward to that game and you're just not taking the Panthers as seriously as you're supposed to, and that's the trap game.
We seen them do it last year where in one of the sounds of the sidelines, I think it was J-Ron Curse was like something along the lines of, yeah, you know who we getting ready for. And it's in the middle of a game. Now, granted, it started to be a blowout, but players are human. They think about these type of things. And you're right. Depending what happened in Week 10, Week 17 could be huge. Yeah.
And they might accidentally look forward to it and pass the opponent that's right in front of them. And it's not even close. Even with the Cowboys on paper, as we have this conversation, let's be clear. The Cowboys on paper are not as good as the Cowboys of 2023. They're just not. But that being said, it's also true that they are still miles better than the Carolina Panthers right now.
Yeah.
So they should absolutely walk in there and just spank those boys. No diddy. However, when you look at how the schedule lines up, if you're looking for a trap game, my eyes keep going to that one.
Let's get to the second question from Zotan here on YouTube. He says, what's this team going to depend on more, scheme or individual performance to have greater success?
I think it's going to be individual performance. I don't think that schematically, X's and O's wise, you're going to see this drastic change from what Dan Quinn was running versus what Mike Zimmer was running. And here's why I say that. I had that belief already, but Mike Zimmer all but confirmed it when Zimmer said, because he was in
Zimmer.
In
you talking Zimmer and Dan Quinn?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
So I don't think there's going to be two. Here's what I mean by that. Mike Zimmer this week, when he was asked about the defense, he said, well, this is quote unquote, he said, this is different for me because normally when I come into a situation, the defense is bad. This defense, however, has been really good. So what he's looking to do, and these are his words, what he's looking to do is find ways to accentuate the things they have been doing well, but then correct the things they've not been doing well. So that, to me, does not sound like an overhaul schematically. Okay? So schematically, there will be changes in quirks that are Mike Zimmer-esque, and you'll be like, okay, that's clearly a Zimmer quirk. But at the same time, if you're looking for a complete overhaul, you're not going to see that schematically. I think the biggest changes are going to be what Zimmer requires individuals to do. Here's an example. The linebacker core, it kind of became an afterthought under Dan Quinn, right? Particularly, you had injury at the position, and then you lost Leighton Vander Esch, the Rashaan Evans experiment didn't work out. You lost to Marion Overshown, unfortunately, but then, instead of really going out there, you tried with Rashaan Evans. I give him credit for that. But you stopped there, and you let a defensive back in Marquise Bell continue to try his hand at linebacker, even though it wasn't working. That's not something that Zimmer's going to do. That's why he brought in Eric Kendricks. That's why he went and got Maris Leofau in the third round. He wants to bolster that core, and they have the Marvion Overshown coming back. So you're looking at, and he's going to require Mike Zimmer, he's going to require Damone Clark to take that big leap this year as well in year 3. So he's going to look at his linebackers. He's going to look them in the face, Zimmer is, and he's going to say, I need you to be the best that you can be. Follow Eric Kendricks, which is a former All-Pro. Follow his lead, and that's the standard. Then he's going to look at his defensive line, and he's going to say, okay, DeMarcus Lawrence, you're good. Keep doing what you're doing. Being the best run-stopping edge rusher in the league. He's going to look at Micah Parsons and say, okay, hi, Micah, cook. And then he's going to look on the interior. He's going to say, Oso Digizua, keep going. You're one of the best interior 3-techs in the league. But then he's going to look at the nose tackle, and he's going to know that something's not quite right there. That's why he talked about Mozzie Smith putting on weight to get to their ideal weight. He won't reveal what the ideal weight is, but he's saying he's at 305 and he's climbing, trying to get to the ideal weight to move him back to nose tackle. Whereas Dan Quinn was trying him out as a 3-tech, even though he was drafted as a nose tackle, right? That experiment failed. Mozzie is now on the mend from the shoulder surgery. He's getting his weight back up, and Mike Zimmer made it very clear that Mozzie Smith is going to be playing for the Cowboys in much the way he played for the Michigan Wolverines. He will be that nose tackle that eats up blocks to allow the linebackers to cover and know their assignments. These are Mike Zimmer's words. So I say all of that to say still that schematically you'll see some changes here or there, but he's not looking to do a complete overhaul because the defense doesn't need a complete overhaul schematically. They were one of the best in the league for yet another season, 3 seasons in a row in both pressures and takeaways. But individually, he's going to be tasking these guys to really step up and be better than they have been. Those that need to step up.
I'm going to keep an eye on that one, man, because from everything that I've dug up on Zim, and just obviously remembering who Zimmer was prior, I don't think Dan and Zim, I don't think they have the similar schemes, number one. And one of the things I took away from Zim is he said something along the lines of, they have to do it my way. He said one thing about going into these teams is if you try to do somebody else's stuff, it doesn't work out. So I think you will. I think some of the things you were saying were definitely schematic changes, and you said there would be some scheme changes. Will it when you say complete overhaul, I don't know. I mean, that's up for interpretation, but I do think you will see different things asked from them, which is scheme on the front line. You'll see different things, obviously, in the second level, and definitely in the secondary, because Zim is way more multiple schematically, right? And DQ was such a man,
that much I agree with.
Yeah.
So there will, like I said, there will be some changes that you look at and you say that's definitely Zimmer. Yeah, that's definitely Zimmer as far as schematics are concerned.
And Gunther. Gunther's he's a madman.
And Gunther, and Paul Gunther. Yes, he is. Mm-hmm. But when you look at Quinn, was more so. I'll give Quinn this credit. He got the Cowboys to reinvest in the safety position, but I thought he got them to reinvest in nose tackle when they traded for Jonathan Hankins and then drafted Mozzie Smith, but then to turn Mozzie Smith into a 3-tech build, I don't know what the hell was going on there.
I don't know.
So, but now we have Zimmer coming in, and historically Zimmer's defenses are critically sustained by elite linebacker play and elite nose tackle play and stopping the run. Zimmer said his first game as a coordinator, the pickle juice game against the Philadelphia Eagles, he got ran up on for over 200 yards because he was also a defensive backs coach, so he figured, hey, just let them do what they need to do up front. We'll take care of it on the back end. And he said ever since then, he's been stop the run first, and we'll figure everything out from there. That's a different right there schematically from what Dan Quinn ran, which is, okay, well, we feel like we can be good enough at stopping the run, but we're going to get all our takeaways from the secondary. Zimmer's like, yeah, we know we can get the takeaways in the secondary, but stop that run or get off my field. That's the biggest schematic change when you're talking about that. And shouts out to A.A. Ron. He said he believes I'm on hopium. I don't know anything that I said today is on hopium. I haven't given you a schedule prediction or anything. I told you a trap game was Carolina. I don't know, but, shouts out, because you either hear what I'm saying or you hear what you think I'm saying.
Oh, we can't please everybody, but A.A. Ron's he's a good one. He's a good one on the channel. So he's not just he's not just saying anything.
We talk on Twitter. He knows I'm gonna throw this back just how he's throwing it to me. No Diddy, but
Bro, stop it. Let me get my
just facts though.
Let me give my 2 cents.
And then you spin it how you want to spin it. So go Dogs, Professor O. I see you.
Let me give my 2 cents on the scheme performance. And this question is brought up because, and shouts out to Zoltan, I often bring up how important I believe scheme is, especially for this team, because I think historically throughout the years, at least through the Romo and Dak era, this team has largely been dependent on its talent, on its individual performance, with average to below average schemes. And, maybe a year defensively, you might have a really good one, like 2021. I think Dan Quinn's scheme was good, right? And then it got people caught up to it. But, I'm going to play devil's advocate to my own thought process. Normally I would say, individual performances. But he said to have greater success. Greater success is more success in the postseason. And I believe once you get to the postseason, scheme, coaching, whatever the hell you want to call it, that's going to have to be more important, because we've seen the individuals are not able to overcome it year in, year out in the playoffs. So if we can have scheme be so good, I think the Cowboys have the players to complement it. If it's just going to be dependent on individual performances, I think that's so much harder to do in the playoffs, Pat. I just do.
It is. And you know why? It's because the more you lean on individual success or individual performances, particularly in the playoffs, because everything you do in the regular season is exaggerated in the playoffs, right? So if you're leaning on that in the playoffs, then more than ever in the playoffs, your play calling better be the best play calling ever.
Yeah.
If you're going to lean heavily on the individuals, because if not, if those individuals, if that particular individual respected to any given play, any given position, if he doesn't handle his assignment like he's supposed to in conjunction with the play call being questionable, then you get Jordan Love and the Packers scoring 4 touchdowns on the first 4 drives.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas if you lean less, a little bit less, not entirely less, because you've got some dogs. You got Trayvon Diggs, a takeaway monster. You've got Deron Bland, a takeaway monster. You got Micah Parsons. You got playmakers, right? Jordan Lewis, he can take the ball away, especially in helping with the run defense, punching the ball free as Christian McCaffrey on the 1-yard line, so he gets that done. But at the same time, you have to have the scheme in order as well, because if the scheme's out of order in the playoffs, if you have a bad game from one or multiple individuals, the scheme might save the day for
There you go.
Right? Because the scheme will help mask even some of your play calling mistakes. But if the scheme is suspect and the individuals are having a bad day and the play calling is
the Packers happen.
The Packers, you got me. We're right there. The Packers end up happening. So get it together.
100%, man. Hey, Pat, appreciate you joining us this morning, as always, every week, giving us the science on the schedule and answering a couple of these questions. The fans absolutely love that. So maybe we'll keep this up throughout the offseason. But sooner or later, we'll get back to a normally scheduled program, man. And up next for the Cowboys mini camp, right?
We got OTAs.
OTAs.
OTAs start on this coming Wednesday. Veterans have already reported, effective this past Monday, they're practicing with the rookies right now. Media access for OTAs will begin next Wednesday. So you have 2 OTA sessions that we have access to, consecutive Wednesdays, the 22nd and the 29th. And then you have mandatory mini camp from June 4th to June 6th. And then we go into the dark space of the off season, and then we'll wake up in Oxnard at training camp. So right
next
around the corner, folks.
Next week we'll be catching up and we'll be talking about what you've seen out there at OTAs.
Yeah, we will.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Y'all don't want to miss that, man. Patrik No. C. Walker, DallasCowboys.com, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Pat, enjoy your weekend, bro.
Yes, sir. I'll holler at y'all later.